So this video is for educational use only. Our group allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Indigenous, to use this as an educational material. Thank you.
Indigenous languages and scripts in the Philippines. Indigenous languages and scripts in the Philippines are an essential aspect of the country's rich cultural heritage and diversity. The Philippines is home to a multitude of indigenous peoples, each with their own distinct languages, cultures, and writing systems. Here's an overview of some prominent indigenous languages and scripts in the Philippines. First is Baybayin or Alibata. Baybayin is one of the most well-known traditional scripts in the Philippines. It was used before the Spanish colonization and was predominantly written in a syllabic script. Today, there's a growing interest in reviving and preserving Baybayin as part of the Filipino cultural identity. Second is Ilocano. Ilocano is a major indigenous language spoken in the northern Philippines. It has its own script, but the Latin alphabet is now commonly used for writing Ilocano. Third is Tagalog or Baybayin based. Tagalog is one of the major languages in the Philippines. Also historically used the Baybayin script. Although the Latin alphabet is now used for writing Tagalog, there are efforts to incorporate Baybayin characters into modern usage. Fourth is Bicolano. Bicolano is a group of languages spoken in Bicol region. Various Bicol languages use the Latin script for writing. Fifth is Cebuano or Cebuanon. Cebuano is widely spoken in the Visayas and Mindanao regions. It primarily uses the Latin script for writing. Six is Waray. Waray is spoken in eastern Visayas region. Like Cebuano, it uses the Latin script for writing. Tiboli. The Tiboli people, an indigenous group in Mindanao, have their own script known as Liang de Laut or Tiboli script. It is writing system with symbols representing sounds in their language. It is Hanunuo. The Hanunuo Mangyan people residing in Mindoro use the Hanunuo script, an indigenous script used for writing their own language. Kapampangan. Kapampangan is spoken by the Kapampangan people in Central Luzon. Igorot languages, a group of languages spoken by various indigenous groups in the Cordillera region such as Ibaloy, Kankanai, and Ifugao. Lumad languages, various indigenous languages spoken by the Lumad people in Mindanao, including Manobo, Tibuli, and Blaan. Eta languages are languages spoken by the Eta indigenous communities in Luzon, such as Mag-Indi and Mag-Ansi. Preserving and promoting these indigenous languages and scripts is crucial for maintaining the cultural diversity and unique heritage of the Philippines. Efforts are being made to document, revitalize, and teach these languages and scripts, ensuring their survival for future generations and fostering a deeper understanding of the country's indigenous cultures. Indigenous language and scripts in the Philippines. These indigenous languages scripts in the Philippines are an essential aspect of the country's rich cultural heritage and diversity. Thank you.
Traditional arts and crafts in indigenous Filipino cultures are incredibly important. They help keep old traditions alive, allowing future generations to connect with their unique heritage. These crafts also give a strong sense of cultural identity and pride to indigenous people. Making and selling these traditional items provide jobs and helps indigenous communities become self-reliant. Many of these crafts use eco-friendly materials which helps protect the environment. They promote cultural exchange and understanding, educate others about indigenous cultures, and even serve as way to resist cultural threats. Additionally, these crafts attracts tourists and boosts the local economy, providing opportunities for growth and empowerment in today's world. One of the examples of traditional in art is cloth weaving. One of the most precious living traditions that are still kept until today is weaving. Originating in the pre-colonial times, the art of weaving of the Cordillera tribal groups in the north is still existing, despite the threat of more practical mass production of cloth. The natives use boxtrap loom to produce blankets and articles of clothing. Piña cloth is also produced in looms throughout the province of Antique. It is a delicate and exquisite hand-woven cloth that is made from the fibers which you can get in the leaves of pineapple plants. It is popularly used in Barong Tagalog, our traditional clothes. Having its organic and airy textile, it's becoming more popular now around the world. Abaca fiber come from the abaca plant that is endemic and grown in the country. It is woven chiefly to make sinamay fabric. Abaca is popular in making a rope, specialty papers like vacuum bags, currency, and tea bags. There are also handcrafts like bags, furniture, carpets, and clothing made of abaca. Next is basket weaving. Baskets are mainly used by the Cordillera for their occupation. They use them as a storage for their food when they need to go to mountain terraces to cultivate their lands. A basket is needed for carrying grains, hunting animals, and fishing in the streams. Baskets made of bamboo become their fish traps. The shape and size of the baskets are according to the kind of fish they want to catch. Jewelry making. Since the early 60th century, jewelry making in the country has been in existence. It is believed that the skill of our early Filipino in making jewelry are adopted from their Asian neighbors like Chinese. Jewelry making is a source of livelihood for the family and it is traditionally a home-based industry. The government gave their support and attention in this industry. By this support, the country became the top producer of gold. Next is wood carving. Philippine sculpture is the most familiar art form among Filipinos. The most popular wood carving in the Philippines are carvings of the Anitos, Santos, and statues of Christ and the Blessed Mother. Philippine sculpture have undergone changes in terms of shape, size, and the medium used. Tattoos. Filipino tattoos have a rich history dating back to before the Philippine island were colonized by Spaniards. When Spanish ships first arrived there, they were greeted by the heavily tattooed Visayas tribe and they called the island La Isla de los Pintados, which means the island of the painted ones in the Philippines. Tattoos were seen as a source of accomplishment and rank. Men bore ink on their chests and heads, a sign of their strength as warriors. Women wore dotted lines on their arms and wrists, or full chests and arm tattoos, and they were seen as marks of beauty. Most tattoos were earned through the passage of rite ceremonies or for accomplishing tasks. The styles varied depending on the region and the tribe that the people came from.
So the indigenous tradition, rituals, and ceremonies. So indigenous ceremonies seek to strengthen a person's connection to the physical and spiritual world, provide a healing or clarity, mark significant life moment, or offering remembrance and gratitude to each ceremony has a specific purpose and hold an important place in the native history. Rituals and ceremony plays a significant role in the tradition of the indigenous people here in the Philippines. These practices are highly important as they serve as way to the indigenous communities to connect with their ancestors, express their cultural identity, and maintain a sense of unity within their communities. The rituals and ceremonies often involve various activities such as dance, music, storytelling, and use of traditional artifacts. Understanding the uniqueness or aspect of each tradition can be provide a valuable insight into the diversity and richness of their cultural heritage. Rituals and ceremonies hold a great significance in the tradition of indigenous people in the Philippines. They serve important cultural practices that connect these communities to their ancestors, express their cultural identity, and foster a sense of unity among their members. So here are the few examples of important rituals and ceremonies. So one, Pagdiwata Festival. So festival, Pahiyas Festival, Kalinga Tattooing, and Pamulinawin festivals. The rituals and ceremonies of the indigenous people in the Philippines play a crucial role in preserving and promoting the country's rich cultural heritage. The rituals and ceremonies are deeply rooted in the indigenous people's belief, tradition, and values, and they serve as important markers of their identity and sense of community. By practicing these rituals and ceremonies, indigenous communities are able to maintain a strong connection with their ancestral roots and pass down their cultural knowledge and tradition to the future generations. These rituals often involve offerings, prayers, dances, and music, and they are performed on significant occasions such as harvest festival, births, weddings, and funerals. The rituals and ceremonies not only serve a way to honor their ancestors and spirits, but also foster a sense of unity and solidarity within the community. They provide an opportunity for people to come together, share stories, and experience and strengthen social bonds. These communal gatherings also serve as platforms for transmitting cultural values, norms, and practices. Furthermore, the rituals and ceremonies of indigenous people in the Philippines contribute to the preservation of the natural environment. Many of these rituals are closely tied to the nature and involve practices that promote sustainability of the ecological balance. So, for example, indigenous communities often perform a ritual to seek blessing of the spirits of the bountiful harvest or to ensure the protection of the natural resources. So, the history and the heritage of the pre-colonial societies in the Philippines. So, the history and heritage of the pre-colonial societies in the Philippines is a fascinating topic. Before the arrival of the Spanish colonials in the 16th century, the Philippines was home to the various indigenous groups which rich cultural tradition and practices. These pre-colonial societies had complex social structures, with some communities organized as chiefdoms or kingdoms. They had their own unique system of governance, trade networks, and artifacts expression. The Asian Filipinos were skilled in various crafts such as pottery, weaving, and metalworking. One notable civilization that existed before the Spanish colonization was the Kingdom of Tondo, which was a powerful trading hub in the Southeast Asia. Another significant pre-colonial society was the Maragtas, an Asian Visayan civilization known for its agricultural practices and maritime skill. To learn more about the historian society, interested in exploring the archaeological findings, Asian texts, and oral tradition passed down through generation. So the understanding of custom, beliefs, and the way of the life these indigenous communities can provide valuable insight in the rich cultural heritage of the Philippines. The pre-colonial societies in the Philippines were diverse and varied, with different indigenous groups, having their own unique cultures and tradition. Each group had its own social structures, political organization, and economic system. Some of the major indigenous groups in the Philippines include the Tagalogs, Visayans, Ilocanos, Bicolanos, and Igorots, amongst others. These societies were primarily agricultural, with farmings and fishing being the main sources of livelihood. They had their own system of governance, laws, and religious belief that they have engaged in trade and commerce with the neighboring communities. The indigenous people of the Philippines had a deep connection with the nature and the practice anism, believing the spirits inhabited natural objects and phenomena. The influence of pre-colonial societies on the contemporary Filipino culture is significant. These societies laid the foundation of many aspects of the Filipino culture that we see today. For an example, the indigenous people of the Philippines have their own unique languages, which have influenced the diverse linguistic landscape of the country. Additionally, their traditional practice and beliefs such as animism and reverence for the nature of the continue of the shape Filipino spiritually and religious practice. So the pre-colonial societies had also a strong emphasis on the community and social relationship. This can be seen in the Filipino concept of bayanihan, which highlights the importance of communal unity and cooperation. So the indigenous people agricultural practices such as rice terracing and fishing techniques have also been adapted and still in the use of the further art crafts of the colonial societies such as weaving, pottery, and wood carving have been preserved and continue to the celebrant of the part of the Filipino cultural heritage. So the traditional music and dancing like tinikling and kundiman also showcase the influence of the free colonial societies on the Filipino performing arts. Thank you.
So, the topic is indigenous resistance and revolts. So, from the word resistance, it means refusal, and revolt means to break away from or to rebel. So, indigenous resistance and revolts refers to act of defiances, opposition, and uprising by indigenous people against oppressive external forces, colonial powers, oppressive governments, or unjust policies that threatens their right, land, culture, and the way of life. So these acts can take various forms, ranging from peaceful protests and organized movements to armed rebellions defending ancestral territories and preserving their cultural heritage. So the question is, why does indigenous people resist and revolt? So indigenous people engage in resistance and revolts for various reasons. Example is environmental conservation and sustainability. Second is injustice and discrimination. So, history of colonization, indigenous people engage in resistance revolts for a multitude of interconnected reasons, often deeply rooted in historical, social, economic, and cultural factors. So, environmental conservation and sustainability. So, this means that indigenous communities are often deeply connected to their natural surroundings. Resistance includes efforts to protect their environment from destructive practices like deforestation, pollution, unsustainable resources, extraction, and promoting sustainable ways of life. So, second reason, injustice and discrimination. Ongoing discriminations and systematic inequalities in education, healthcare, employment, and legal system drive indigenous population to resist. They strive for equal rights, fair treatment, and end-to-end prejudice and racism. So there are a lot of reasons why indigenous people resist. So, in summary, indigenous resistance is driven by complex interplay of historical, social, economic, and cultural factors. It is a fight for justice, equality, cultural preservation, environmental sustainability, and the right to self-determination, aiming to rectify historical wrongs and ensure a better future for indigenous people. So, that's it.
Colonialism. Colonialism is controlled by one power over the Department of Area. Colonialism was practiced by an empire such as ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and ancient Egypt. Colonialism, people make leaders so that the leader will decide how to improve their economy. Then, second, cultural assimilation. It is the process when which a minority of group or culture assume the behavior, the values, the rituals, and beliefs of their host nation majorities of group.
Ancestral domain and land tenure system. Ancestral domain and land tenure system refers to the traditional and customary rights that indigenous people have over their ancestral lands and resources. These systems are rooted in the cultural, social, and historical connections that indigenous communities have with specific territories. So first is ancestral domain. Ancestral domain is the concept that represents the geographical area that has been occupied or used by indigenous communities for generations. It encompasses not only the physical land but also the spiritual, cultural, and economic significance it holds for the community. So the second one is land tenure system. Land tenure system or systems refer to the various ways indigenous communities govern and manage their ancestral lands. These systems are often distinct from Western concept of land ownership. Instead of individual ownership, they commonly involve communal and collective ownership and management. Thank you.
So, land dispute. So, my topic is land disputes and exploitation. So, land disputes and exploitation are complex issues that can have significant social, economic, and environmental implications. So, here are some common challenges associated with this problem. So, first is lack of legal clarity. So, in some regions, land laws and property rights are poorly defined or enforced, leading to confusion and disputes over land ownership and usage. So next is resource extraction. So the extraction of natural resources such as minerals, timber, and oil can lead to land exploitation. So indigenous and local communities are often this disproportionately affected by the environmental and social impacts of resource extraction. Next is agricultural expansion. So the expansion of agriculture, including large-scale commercial farming, can lead to land disputes, deforestation, and loss of biodiversity. Next is infrastructure development. So infrastructure projects like highways, dam, and urban development can displace communities and disrupt ecosystem, leading to conflicts over land use or compensation. Next is lack of land rights for indigenous people. So in many parts of the world, indigenous people lack legal recognition of their traditional land rights. This leaves them vulnerable to land grabs and exploitation. So corruption and next is corruption and land grabbing. So corruption within governments and the private sector can contribute to illegal land grabbing and unfair land acquisition, often at the expense of vulnerable communities. Next is environmental degradation. So unsustainable land exploitation practice can lead to soil erosion, deforestation, and degradation of ecosystem, posing long-term environmental challenges. Next is conflict of violence. So land disputes can escalate into conflicts, leading to violence and displacement of communities. In some cases, these conflicts become protracted and difficult to resolve. Next is climate change. Climate change can exacerbate land-related challenges, including changing weather patterns, desertification, rising sea levels, leading to further disputes over habitable lands. And lastly is lack of access to legal support. Many affected communities lack access to legal resources and advocacy to protect their land rights, leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. So addressing these challenges requires a multi-faceted approach involving legal reforms, community engagement, environmental sustainable, and social justice initiative. It often involves collaboration between government, civil society organization, and international bodies to find equitable solution to land disputes and exploitation. So that is my topic.